Hey there, fourth graders. For our next project, we're going to be doing a harvest still life. So, you're going to want to have your color theory notes handy because it's all about color for the still life. Also, if you want, on the back page, if you want to go down to still life, a still life is an arrangement of objects on a table. So I have set up in the classroom a harvest still life, and harvest refers to the season of fall, which we are in, and I just love fall. So I have arranged different things like pumpkins and footballs and sunflowers and all sorts of other cool things, and in the slideshow that I attach you'll be able to see some images of fall objects and the still lives that I have put together. But again, a still life, an arrangement of objects on a table. So if you have fall objects at home, you can arrange them on a table. If you just have stuff that is important to you and you want to make a still life out of that, you can still use color theory if the objects aren't fall. So you just put together a still life of your own if you don't want to make it themed based on the season of fall. So you do you on that. But you'll get a paper. You're going to want to observe the objects that you're drawing. So you really got to look at them. You can't just come up with it in your imagination. So you really got to actually look. So I'm going to choose a neutral colored piece of chalk. I'm going to do maybe a brown. Just pick a neutral color to sketch in your composition. A composition is the way you lay out your picture on the paper. So you might want to zoom in. The goal is to get about 5 different objects or more. You don't have to draw every single thing on the table if you're looking at my images. I just want to have different viewpoints and perspectives for the different tables in the classroom. You at home, if you come up with objects of your own, try to get at least 5 in there, or you could put more and then just zoom in on specific areas. So I'm really looking here at some pumpkins and sunflowers. So I want to draw the things that are in front first because they overlap the things behind them. So actually I'm going to draw the football first because I see that front and center. So I get the shape, and I'm going to actually crop it. So I'm going to zoom in on the paper and crop it. I'm going super fast, but I'm looking up as often as every 3 to 4 seconds just to make sure I'm getting everything in place. I also have a vase behind that, like a clay jug, so I'll get that in there. And I have an owl statue over here, that's kind of in the front, so it's kind of turned at its side. So again, I'm drawing what I'm seeing, I'm going kind of fast, I'm just blocking in the composition. I'm not worried about shading yet. There's a pumpkin in front of that owl, so I don't see the whole thing, so I'm going to get that pumpkin shape in there. Alright, there's a funky greenish pumpkin right here. I'm going to draw that. So again, if you start with like the stem of a pumpkin, pumpkins aren't perfect circles. They're strange forms that kind of come out, and I'm just looking at the different shapes to create the 3D form. The sunflowers are peeking out, and I gotta be honest with you, they're starting to die, so they're a little droopy. But I'll get some of the stems. And again, you can move things around in your still life. If you see something way over on the left that you like, you could put that in there with something next to it from the right. So you don't have to be absolutely perfect or photorealistic. You're just putting things in that you like, the shape of it, the design of it, whatever. So you can move things with your mind. Have a little bit of telekinesis and move things around. And maybe I'll move something myself, and I'll get this giant orange pumpkin in the background. And it's so big it bulges in front of the stem, so I can't really start with the stem. Curves up, curly Q, huge. So I could add something over here. I'm not gonna. I kind of like how I'm going off the page in every direction so far, and I just blocked it in with that neutral brown. Now I can start adding in color. And we want to also look at shadows. because the lights in my room are creating shadows and also highlights on certain objects. So, for instance, with the brown football, I might use the flat edge of my chalk and I'm just gliding across the paper. I'm not Hulk smashing, I'm not putting any pressure. I'm just gliding it across. Then I can use 1 or 2 fingers as my blendy blend tool. My whole arm, my whole hand, my whole face, I'm not getting it all super messy. I'm just using 1 or 2 fingers to blendy blend blend. I make little circles round and round to blend in that space. Then we're going to kind of use complementary colors to add shadows, but since brown is not on the color wheel because it's neutral, I'm lucky I have different shades of brown here to try to match my football. So I have like a warmer brown I can blend in. And then an even darker brown for the shadow. So I'm really looking to see some of the shadows. There's a shadow over here. And really, shadows are just shapes on your football or whatever object you're drawing. We're trying not to use black as our shadows. We're trying to just use opposite colors. And for all highlights, if you want it to be light, add some white. So the white laces, of course, will be white. The white stripe will be white. But there's even shadow on the white stripe. So I might find a gray piece of chalk because it's shadowed over here and over here, a little under some of these laces. I can just kind of tap it in or blend it in. And if it's too dark, what do you think you can do? Just add more white on top, make it a little lighter if you get it too dark. That's the thing with chalk, you can just layer, layer, layer. Then let's say I'm moving on to an orange pumpkin. Orange, if you look at your notes or the color wheel, the opposite of orange would be blue. So, let's say I got my orange pumpkin. I'll just fill in part of it here. Again, I'll use a finger or two to blendy blend blend to make it solid. Remember, you don't have to push so hard that you're getting a dust storm of chalk left behind, because that just kind of wastes the material. So I might use some blues, and then I might cheat a little bit and use some brown as well as shadow. But I see a shadow here from the pumpkin in front. Because some chalk, the blue, might have a little more yellow in it or whatever. So it's not a perfect neutral shadow. It looks a little greenish, but I'm actually looking at the pumpkin and there is a little green tint to it. So I can also use a little brown for that orangey pumpkin shadow. And then the highlights, I'll use a little white. So the light's really shining bright on that pumpkin. It's a little lighter here, so I'll just blend that in. But then some of the highlights are so bright, I'm not going to blend them in. I can really see the shape of the lights above it. Boom, right on there. Then the pumpkin in front I love because it's green. So a green pumpkin or a green object, what would its complementary color be? Green and rojo red. So I'll just fill in half the pumpkin, blend it up. So again, I'm going to use its complementary color for the shadow. And the complement of green is red. So the shadow, there's like a shadow from the owl here I'm looking at. Again, I'm looking up every 3 to 4 seconds. There's a shadow from the football. There's even a little shadow here in between where the grooves of the pumpkin are and behind the stem. So again, the green and the red are going to blend to make a neutral shadow on that pumpkin. If it's green, maybe it's technically a gourd, I'm not really sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. But look at how that red and green really mixes nicely. I think red and green make the best shadow, personally. And then you could go in with some of the highlights because of course we got some bright spots on that pumpkin too. So just really look at what you're drawing. Then you can go back in if there's more distinct lines. You can make them darker, make them lighter. The stems are mostly brown. You can use the light brown, the dark brown, but stems also have highlights too, so you might have to get a little bit of white in there to get the texture and the highlights too. So, complementary colors create shadows. Things that are in front overlap the things that are behind them, and we want to fill the composition. Try to go edge to edge, corner to corner as best you can. You don't want your objects teeny tiny in the middle. You don't want 2 objects. That's pretty boring. You want at least 5. So it's a more interesting composition and balanced from top to bottom, side to side. I'm going to show you some finished ones that I've done, finished demos that I've done here. So this is when sunflowers were more alive. Gotta love that. But again, highlights. This was a white pumpkin, so I used like a little sandy tan, a little brown for the shadows, and then bright, bright white for the highlights. My little yellow ghosty was down here, so what color did I use for the grayish neutral shadow over here? Yellow and purple are complementary colors. Here I had some red apples, so just like the green pumpkin used red for the complement, the red apple used a little green. And actually I'll show you, let's pretend that this jug is yellow. So you could get your yellow in there, you could blend it up. So I've shown you red and green and blue and orange. So now I'll prove that yellow and purple makes a neutral shadow too. So the football would make a shadow here. And I blend it up. Ooh, a nice grayish neutral shadow, that yellow and purple. Gotta love it. And then of course, some white highlights where the light hits that ceramic jug of mine. Boom. So, work on composition. You can practice in your sketchbook with just pencil. If you don't have chalk at home, you can use whatever materials you have. You could even make it into a painting, because chalk is like painting with chalk instead of painting with paint. Because you're blending, you're mixing, you're using color theory from your notes. So you have primary, secondary, and intermediate colors. But again, a still life, an arrangement of objects on a table. You guys are going to rock this. I can't wait to see your compositions, especially if you're using your own harvest fall objects or your own personal objects. It could be a symbolic still life if you choose objects that are important to you and represent you in your life. So have fun, enjoy the composition, practice first, and enjoy your blending and color theory. This is the stuff of professionals, and I know you can handle it. Keep up the good work. Let me know how you do.